All right. Are we live? Let me just give that the... Just wait till we go live. All right. Let's see. Damn. All right. All right. I'm just going to share this, people. So, whilst we're beginning, I've just seen a poem. I thought I'll just state this to begin. That Kuchaye yaar mein hoga kahin masroof-e tawaf, dil agar seene mein hota, to dhadakta hota. Wah, 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 wah. Which means that it must be somewhere busy doing tawaf, like tawaf at the house or the place, the abode of the beloved, people of the beloved, Allah. That if the heart was in my chest, it ought to be beating. I just went on Facebook, I just saw that straight away. I thought, what the hell? Let's share that first to begin, then I can share the live. All right, where are we, where is it? Yaar ye ho kya raha hai? All right, there it is. I'm just sharing it. And that's shared. Alright. Inna alhamdulillahi wa kafah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa. Wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada. Wa man bihudahum ihtada. Wa bi'athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa. Wa ba'd. فسلام الله على القوم. أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. Juan Ying Layth. Bienvenidos a todos, people. And of course, swagatam, people, swagatam. Right, let me just bring my drinks closer. The most important thing is to have your drinks. Once the drinks are all sorted, I guess it's all good. All right, so you know, as the poet said, that just one moment. Nasha agar sharab mein hota to nachti botal. Don't you think so? That if the intoxication was in the actual drink, then the bottle ought to be intoxicated. Meaning it's all in us, people. It's all in the mind. It's all in the mind. It's all in the mind. That's it. That's the... Can you have a nikah where the woman has a close friend as a wali and not a family member? Of course you can. Of course. Claro que sí. Claro que sí. Right, of course, people. I've got a whole session, which is, a whole segment on YouTube about a wali. Is a guardian necessary for a nikah? Where I go through the whole breakdown and I show that this hadith is not sahih. The one that la nikah illa bi wali is an unacceptable hadith. So I've got the whole breakdown on YouTube. You can watch it there. I go through the chains and everything. So, is it permissible to join the British Army? Right, it is permissible to join the British Army. However, I'd like to add a caveat. Allah, because you see, me as a whole, I am kind of, my understanding is a bit anti-war and like I see, and actually I'll add to this discussion later on as well when I speak of the whole India Indo-Pak war scenario going on. But you see, to me, soldiers are quite often just exploited people. They're individuals who are dumbed down and exploited. And I say dumbed down not to mean that they're dumb. They're not dumb. They're incredibly courageous people and brave, but they are dumbed down by the institution of the military in order to use them just as kind of robotic automatons and just pawns for them to say shoot, kill, strike, and that's all they do. You know, we hear and we obey. And they're not allowed to really think. You're not allowed to be a conscientious objector. You're not allowed to, if you are drafted to war, and if that war is deemed unjust in your own thinking, in your cognitive capacity, you should have the right to object and to refuse to participate. I believe that firmly. So, and as far as my understanding, unless the law is now different, if you join the military, I don't think, especially in England, I don't think you have that right to object. Or I mean, maybe you can speak to them, because that's something I'm against. I feel that human beings should always have the right to express themselves. And if they disagree with something, it cannot be imposed upon them. So that's my point of contention. That said, it's fine to join the British Army. There's nothing, it's not like joining the British Army is haram. In fact, it's absolutely fine. But the question would come to, what if they are out on an exploitative element? And do you have the right to object? Or must you participate too? So you can find out by asking them. I'm not exactly sure what the specifics on that are. Right, ahlan wa sahlan bikum, people. Ahlan wa sahlan. What is going on? What is going on? I'll let some of you tune in, click like, click share. All right, the hammer is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan. Hammer, doing it. Who else? People, whilst others are tuning in, since there's some questions behind. Right, I'm just trying to... Do you approach the hadith of Abu Huraira? What about joining the British Army as a dentist? Why would that even be a question? Like, why is that bothersome in any way? Of course you can join the British Army as a dentist. I'm saying you can join the actual army. You can participate, and you can... I was just saying that I feel, not from a religious perspective, but my own personal perspective, that I would just have that kind of... that caveat in saying that, do you have the right to be a conscientious objector if you are drafted, or do you have no choice? I don't know the specifics on that with the army, so you can inquire with them. I feel if you have no choice, then to me that is quite, regardless of what, whether it's the military or anything, I feel that that is an oppressive element. Okay, so I'm not sure what the current rules and laws and regulations stand as, but you can find out. Right, so whilst you're all tuning, Ustad Muhammad, ahlan wa sahlan bikum. People, a hell of a lot's been going on this last week. Oh, whoa, what has been... First of all, before anything else, can you explain the mention of Gog and Magog? Yeah, you can. Gog and Magog. I've explained that previously in much detail. It is available on YouTube as a segment, but briefly I'll explain that these things are mentioned in the Quran. Nobody is too sure what Gog and Magog. It's not, this Gog and Magog is the biblical term. And people ain't even sure what the biblical term means. In the Quran, it's Yajuj and Majuj, and nobody's really sure what that means in the Quran. Inna Yajuj wa Majuj, that Yajuj and Majuj are being problematic, okay, that they have caused calamities on the earth. And Allah states that, and as time goes by, that Yajuj and Majuj will, min kulli hadabin yansilun, and that they are all everywhere and chaos. But what does this mean, and what are Yajuj and Majuj? And then there's just the world of made up stories that people have thrown in there. Nobody truly knows what Yajuj and Majuj mean in the Quran when the term appears. Just like in the Bible, Gog and Magog, nobody is really too sure what Gog and Magog mean. There is a reference to them in the Old Testament, and then there is a reference to them, I believe, in the Gospel of John, is it? Or is it in the Gospel? But in the New Testament, there's a reference as well. I believe it's in the book of Revelations. Now, Gog and Magog in the New Testament are not the Gog and Magog of the Old Testament. That the biblical scholars are very clear about, okay? That what seems to be mentioned as Gog and Magog in the New Testament is not the same reference to Gog and Magog in the Old Testament. So even the biblical scholars are being very clear that these things do not mean the same thing that is being mentioned over there. And Gog and Magog in the old British myths is not what is meant by the New Testament or the Old Testament. So Gog and Magog in the old myths of the British kind of Isles is that they used to be some kind of great giants and that roamed the British Isles, and then you had certain whatever people came over that kind of finished them and killed them off, and then this land became conquered and they killed off Gog and Magog. But those Gog and Magog of that myth are not the Gog and Magog of the Old Testament or the New Testament, who, by the way, are not the Gog and Magog of the Quran. So this is all chaos, and the only thing you've got there is the same word, and nobody believes that these are the other things, okay? This seems to be a word that people seem to have been using when referring to extreme chaos, whether it was in myth or whether it was in reality. Okay, so in the book of Revelations, when they're speaking of the apocalypse and the whole apocalyptic kind of chaos that will engulf the world, and this mention of Gog and Magog appears there quite timely. The same thing in the Quran, it seems to be in reference to some phenomenon of chaos from Yajuj, from like how flames kind of fly up, and this is, so it's not a even the Arabic doesn't seem to make sense. It's not like a regular Arabic term, Yajuj and Majuj. So people have disagreed. What did it mean? Some people have said it meant some kind of alien species, like these kind of creatures that, and there's no real evidence to prove any of that, but it's an interesting theory if it's aliens. Others in the past have said it was maybe the Mongols. Interesting. I think it, and as certain people have said as well in the past, that it referred to, and that's also Sheikh Sa'di in his Risala, not so much in his tafsir, but in his Risala writes that they were the colonialists. And colonialism, the way it suddenly engulfed right. Sorry, just one moment, people. One moment. Just 2 seconds. Right, oh, sorry. Right, that was an emergency of... But anyway, all under control. It's under control, yeah, under control. Right, so I'll have to get that part edited. Right, now, this whole Yajuj and Majuj seems to be chaotic. In my understanding, I go with what Sheikh Sa'di, Abdurrahman Sa'di had said, that it was the colonialists, and I think somebody said allow the girls. Is that what you think preoccupies my time? But or are they also a form of Yajuj and Majuj? Right, so they could be. The trials of men, the trials of men. But so now that's what I kind of go with, that it is colonialism, people. Right, so all right, Mubin, I'm honored. Top fan award, people. Facebook is giving top fan badges. All right, that's what we're talking about. You're doing it, you're doing it. Mwah! Much love to all of you, right? Especially those of you with the badges. You're doing it, you're doing it. Somebody saying, is that one of those calls during my life? Yaar, ye log mujhe bakhshte. Yaar, they don't even let me do a live. Ye kya demand hai? Hi, only one of me. Kya karoon bhava? Right, so Sheikh Ahmed al-Tayyib described polygamy as an injustice to women. Huh? An injustice to women. That's only if you don't know how to love properly. Maybe when some people are doing it, they're doing it as an injustice. But when some people are doing it, they're doing it as an act of just love for mankind. You know, this यहाँ पे बंदे की बात होती है. You know, it depends on the person, I suppose. Sheikh Ahmed Tayyib described polygamy as an injustice to women. Yaar, क्यों injustice? Yaar, spread the love. It's no, the polygamy, huh? Polygamy. So have we finished on, first of all, Yajuj and Majuj, in case people think the topic has kind of intertwined, and now Yajuj and Majuj are the wives surrounding a person. He's like, oh my God, they're from everywhere. Yajuj and Majuj. Right, so okay, so that's answer that. Polygamy, what do we think of polygamy? Look, I think these things, each to their own. I don't think we should, as adults, interfere in other adults' personal relationships so long as things are by mutual consent, so long as they are. I'm not saying that people should do polygamy. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm not saying anything. Mera kya bolna hai? You know, people will do what they want to do. They're not going to say, oh, what does Mufti Abu Layth have to say about this? So, and neither are they going to say, well, I wonder what Sheikh Ahmed Tayyib has to say. Look, I think one thing I would say is that things like plural relationships, personally, they are probably a headache. That too, like a migraine one. They're not like headaches of like a small, this isn't just your regular kind of paracetamol case. I'm sure it must be like of a severe, either like it begins with a severe migraine and the spectrum goes up to like a tumor level. That's what I'm sure multiple marriages must be like. But that said, if people want to embark on them and people are happy to be a part of them, live and let live. But you see, that said, I think that there should be transparency. One thing there shouldn't be, this is very clear, one thing there shouldn't be is a kind of, there should not be any exploitative deception in that sense. That this kind of misleading people, and what's a good word for it? But like I've come across cases where people will, they'll have these kind of misleading or secret marriages that will be completely built on lies. And I think that kind of stuff is wrong categorically. I'm against that kind of stuff. I think people, if they are going to embark on whatever relationship they're going to embark on, they should just embark on it on, like, I understand that, look, everybody, when they're building up relationships, not everybody, but a lot of people, there's an element of, there's like a kind of persona that people put on, a face that maybe, a side of them that they like people to see. And I'm sure everybody does things like that, and there may be some elements of, if we can call them, white lies or things like this. And I'm not here to judge people, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where there's outright damning kind of deception. And so somebody will be married, for example, and he'll be misleading some woman. Let's say I've come across cases who is not interested in marrying him if he's married, but he will then pretend he's not married just to kind of get married to this woman, and then she's found out later on that this person's married. These kind of things are wrong. I think people should there should be a level kind of playing. People should, if they are going to embark on these relationships, there should be transparency, and then it's up to them. You understand? That said, if either people, obviously the husband, but the wife, if she was not happy, let's say in any situation, especially in these situations, even if it wasn't these situations, but if she was not happy, she has the absolute and categorical right to leave that relationship, or tell him that, look, I'm not happy with this as it is, either this or I'm out. And she has that right. And men do not have the right to control women. And they do not have the right to kind of say, well, you can leave this relationship if I'm okay with it. You're not in charge like that. Okay, so just to be very clear on that. Okay, so if people do embark, because I've come across so many cases where people have had multiple relationships, as in plural kind of relationships, so they've had more than one spouse. And in some cases, the wives have been kind of okay with it. In other cases, they haven't. And if they haven't been okay, they've said on many cases that if that's what you're going to do, then I'm out. And she has the right to be out then. And the guy can't hold her hostage to that relationship. Okay, just being very clear. And she has the right, if either he's going to amicably, they're going to be out, or she will apply for a talaq and she will get that talaq. It's very clear, right? So there's this misunderstanding that some men have, that they think they can hold the women hostage in relationships. You can't. And that would be haram to do that. Okay, so because you would be causing harm. So very clear, that's my kind of stance on things. So I don't believe that we should be micromanaging people's relationships, but I do believe that people should have a sense of maturity in their relationships. So people to their own, people to their own. They don't need to run it past others. If they're happy with it, that's all that counts. That's all that matters. But at the same time, you can't kind of hold people hostage. Okay, so I just want to be very clear on that point. Okay, right. So can you talk about alright, so people. Right, I wanted to mention this, Elaichi chai, people, Elaichi chai. Allah. That's not what I wanted to mention. What I wanted to mention is that I'd been on this DNA thing that I told you before, and I had some feedback, and I was curious about the whole anthropological makeup and everything, and I've spoken about that in the past. Right, but through the DNA and being on the website, whoa, a pleasant people, an absolute overwhelmingly pleasant surprise was I came across my long lost aunt, ya salam, who is Irish. So she's my mum's sister, half sister. Now she was completely kind of disconnected since birth, really, and although she's been on a long search to reconnect with the family, reconnect. I mean, my grandfather has passed. He's passed a couple of decades ago, but she'd been on a very lengthy search spanning several decades to reconnect with her family, and it's only when I took the DNA that it kind of connected us. It found an immediate kind of match, and we've been in touch since then. This has been for almost a month now, something like that, or probably, no, actually over a month, probably about just under 2 months. So we've been in touch and chatting, and a lot of kind of verifying a lot of information and finding out, and then we've realized, oh my God, everything adds up, not just the DNA, but everything. And that's been it's been awesome. It's been surreal. So this, we've been planning, and this last weekend they've been over here. They've kind of flown over from Ireland, people, the whole family. So we've had them over. It's been amazing, overwhelming, reconnecting, getting to learn about each other and see. So that's an aunt, and then I suppose my cousins, Irish cousins, people. But it's been amazing, and I gotta say that, wow, it's it's actually quite surreal. It's not something that you hear of every day or that you think happens in real life, but it does, alhamdulillah. But it's been an amazing, and my mum's been very happy about the whole situation, and very kind of but it's been an amazing time. It's also allowed us to kind of rekindle that whole discovery about my grandparents and the whole family thing, and really learn a lot more. And it's been amazing. Somebody said your grandfather was my grandfather, he was a legend. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. I think what gave it one of the things, since we were growing up, that grandfather, my maternal, we always knew that he was a legend, as it was. But by the time we were growing up, his heydays had kind of long been, and he was like really ill at that stage of life, and he'd had a stroke, and he kind of become really debilitated. So we never got to see him in his heydays. We only heard about him. And through some of even the pictures, and I used to see that he had a tattoo, you see, on his forehead, the crescent and the star, and just his style and the whole approach. We knew he was a legend, as it was. And he'd been somebody who lived in Birmingham in the UK from the 60s, and great man of great courage and great strength and great kind of so we always kind of idolized him anyway, as so he was. We heard all these incidents about him. So he, pre-partition of Pakistan, India, was somebody in the army, and that too of great skill. And there was like certain stories, like a story that he was on a particular occasion, that when he was in one of those with the army, they had one of the battles, he was actually shot, I think on his leg or something, but he walked like so many miles, but he had come across one of his own relatives who was in the army with him that had been killed in action. So he died, he was shot and had been killed. So he actually carried his body as well and took it right back for the janaza and burial. And so these he was a legend. May Allah rest his soul in peace. But yes, so obviously these were his Irish connections. Unke badolat. You know, we'd, and I'm sure he was a very charming man. So, so this is his daughter, my mum's half sister. But anyway, that's an amazing thing. I did say I'd speak about that, and I mentioned that. But I think it's amazing, and it reminds me of the verse in the Quran that Allah says that, look, we created you from a single pair. من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل, and we made you so many different people, like different tribes or different clans or different لتعارفوا, so that you may get to know one another. And this getting to know one another is an amazing kind of process, really. So I think it's something amazing, really, to reconnect and to do things like that. So science, huh? Science. Somebody said, you don't look very... I'm not Irish. Although actually the DNA did say that 13.5% or whatever was Irish, Scottish, Welsh. But that was nothing to do with this connection. This is... her mom was Irish, not my granddad. Right, so she was Irish, and obviously then the daughter is half Irish, half Pakistani, I guess. Right, so... see yourself leaving Islam in the future. Could I ever see myself leaving Islam in the future? What an odd question. I don't see myself leaving Islam in the future. Obviously, look, faith is, you know, there's two things. One, we don't know the future about anything. And two, these things are always, from a faith perspective, up to Allah. But I don't believe that, to me, Islam makes a lot of sense. It is something that makes sense for somebody like me. It does make sense. I do see it as built upon reason, unlike other people. So, and if I saw Islam to be unreasonable, and if I believed it was unreasonable, I wouldn't be a part of it. But I believe it to be reasonable. I believe it to be built on reason. I believe it to have strengthened my life in so many ways that, you know, I kind of believe that God, you know, watches over me, you know, in that, as I'm sure all of you believe as well, or hope many of you on here. But I believe that, you know, about my own life and my own journey. And you know, it says, Ghalib says in his I have that as a poem written on, you know, in my living room downstairs on the wall, framed, that that couplet of Ghalib, where he says, Zindagi apni jab is shakal se guzri Ghalib, hum bhi kya yaad karenge ke khuda rakhte the. That, you know, having seen all the vicissitudes, the ups and downs, and the stages that life has taken us through, all we can say, Ghalib, is that God favored us. You know, it's like, and I that really, as a person, and each person can only do this for themselves. Like, I can't do this for you, but if you reflect, you will see that resonate, that kind of, you know, that touch of God watching over that, you know, in your life. All the from the tiny blessings to the amazing, overwhelming blessings that you've had in your life. And I'm sure that if you think about them, there's so many, but there's things that you think that, wow, that, you know, had I even planned this, it couldn't have worked out so well. I remember, you know, before I went to study, when I was just about 17, I began working in an Islamic bookstore in Birmingham. I used to work I had a job as I'd finished college, because the college degree, it wasn't a degree, but it was the NVQ qualifications. The way we had them is, as soon as you finish your portfolio, you finish the course. So it doesn't have to run for 2 years. It could be done in 2 years, or 1 year, or 1.5 years. So once I finished that, I was working in an insurance brokerage. But then once, as I got more and more infatuated with the deen, I left and I worked in an Islamic bookshop. It was Islamic Vision. Those of you that remember it, it was in Birmingham, in Small Heath, and the place now, it was IDCI, but it was the old kind of shop, the Ahmed Didat thing. But there, that gave me access to a lot of Islamic books and lectures as well. But I remember at the time there was this, when I got more serious in the months that were coming at that time, and I wanted to study the deen, I took a book by, and I met the author later on, by the way, in years to come, Ahmed Thompson, amazing person. But this book, I took this book of his called The Difficult Journey, and in it, it's basically a book about, I mean, I read this back then in the 90s. So, you know, if I mess up the narrative, it's, you know, I can be excused, it's been so long. But it's basically about these guys who want to go on Hajj. And what they do is they do a complete kind of like, they just go on a mission. Like, they want to go by road, and just, they have very little like means. They don't have much money. They don't have many, like, they don't know whether it's going to happen or not. And I think it's based in it's real life events. Ahmed Thompson is a Muslim from, I believe, Norwich, or he may have been from London. He's a convert to Islam, and he may have been, I don't know whether he was a lawyer or something, but he had a professional background. So he sets off on this journey, and they just have something like a few pounds, and they traveled somewhere to Europe, and they're just kind of grafting, and they're getting from A to B to C, and the paths are just like, there's a point where I think they land in Egypt or something, and it's almost impossible, but they get away with it. And I remember reading this before I went to study, and at the time I would just carry this book with me, and I was just reading through it. And I drew so much inspiration, not so much about the actual, they were going to do Hajj. I was obviously thinking of going to study, but of the fact that God works in, you know, in amazing ways. And there was a line from that book where he says that, you know, when he's reminiscing about everything, how it kind of unfolded. And he said that, you know, if I owned the whole universe, I couldn't have planned it as perfectly as it happened. Like, the way God designed it to unfold, I couldn't have done that if I had complete control over everything. I still, it wouldn't have been as perfect, as amazing. That's what I mean by perfect. Obviously there's problems. And that really struck me, that phrase, that sentence, this meaning that he was conveying in the book. And I gotta say, and I drew courage from it, and I went off, because I was only young. I was just 17, just going on 18, and I went off to study. And I have to say, in my own life, the way things have mapped out, have unfolded, and it's not to say that there's been, you know, major problems and things like that all along the way, but still, the way things have happened, I have to say that it's been, you know, it's amazing how Allah has been there. And I'm sure that's the same with you guys as well. If you think about it, and it's not to mean that, I don't mean by that for a second that it was easy, that there were a lot of difficulties, you know, when I went off, or even in life in general, whether it was the struggles, whether it was at times finances or health, or falling ill, or being stranded, or just facing, you know, resistance, facing hardship, facing people who are awkward. I mean, all of these things, you know, hitting a mental block. You know, there was a time when I was trying to memorize the Quran, and I remember I was on, I think, Juz 11, and I hit a mental block. No matter what I did, it just was not happening. And I remember, like, it went on for a week, and but it was debilitating at the time. But then, alhamdulillah, I got over it. But what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter what it was, that you get through it. You understand? That, you know, that kind of emotion, that will, the one thing that people underestimate, the human will to kind of persevere. That, like in the poem, that ए जज्बा दिल गर मैं चाहूं हर चीज मुकाबिल आ जाए, मंजिल के लिए दो गाम चलूं और सामने मंजिल आ जाए. That, you know, if that he says that this, the passion of the heart, that if the heart is determined, the will to get something, then the destination will be in front of you. That all you have to do is take 2 steps, and it will automatically, things will just, you know, the path, the way will just open up for you. So yeah, so for me, this relationship with Allah is a very personal one. It's not something that, you know, it's not something which is built on superstition. It's not something which is just built on like because I was born a Muslim in that sense. So it is a very personal relationship. It's something, and it's like any journey, it's a turbulent from this side, it's obviously, you know, being human, we're going to be bewafa. You know, we're not going to be loyal. That's the human human hallmark, is being unloyal. And I think on so many occasions I've personally, I would say I've been like that. I've been very rebellious in that sense towards, even, you know, if I can have the audacity to say, towards God even, you know, it's been a very, and it still is, as always, but still, and that's the amazing thing, that it doesn't matter sometimes, as much as I've rebelled sometimes, even against God in that understanding, if I can use these terms, but yet you still, you know, it doesn't matter, أَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا, that wherever you then turn, فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, that you still find Allah there. You still find that things come together. And that is amazing. You know, I've at times tried to test things, and I've tried to, and I'm sure other people have done it too, and even test with reason, you understand, like certain arguments, and take them. But it's amazing how it, you know, each time it's never kind of folded. It never. So, you know, this is a very intimate kind of relationship, I feel, and I advise everybody to have their own personal relationship with God like that. I don't think, you know, it's not, for me, like, everybody's different, you see. Like, I don't consider myself to be like a very kind of that kind, it depends what you mean by religious, but that, like, I don't pray really nafal or things like, barely just the barely just the fara'id. I don't keep voluntary fasts, and I don't do things like that. I mean, I'm just being honest. And maybe some people, they're cut out like that. They do things like that. But I do enjoy the tradition of Islam. I enjoy, like, I don't just enjoy, you know, it's not just me gusta, it's me encanta. You know, I love it. The whole, I'm overwhelmed by the deen on that level, in that capacity, and how just the message it gives of humanity, and then pondering over it. To me, that's my kind of thing. And I try to, you see, one thing I try to do is to have a clean heart. I mean, it's never going to be totally clean, obviously. The Pakistani gene will always be influencing the corruption, but it's, you know, I try to have that compassion towards humanity. And I think that, what could be greater than that, you know? And to me, that is like one of the greatest messages of this theme. You know, there's a poet, Nida, I think, is it Nida Fazli, who said in one of his poems, he said something, it's kind of, it doesn't come clearly to mind, but in there, the message, he says that, you know, he says, today we made a child laugh. Like, says, bacche ko hasa diya aaj. And he says, like, what is, and he says, I can't think of any act of worship greater than that. And that resonates with me, you see. So So this is, I think it's an important message for people in a time where they're becoming confounded by a lot of doubt surrounding religion. That religion, faith is not in the legal edicts of the clergy. Faith is what resides in your heart, in your connection, in your understanding that Allah is there for you, in your time of need, that solace that you find, in that motivation to be there for humanity, in to give in charity, in to help, in to make someone smile. That is really faith. It's not in the legal edicts of the mullah or the clergies, and I'm not belittling the kind of fatwa. Obviously, I'm a part of that tradition. I love that tradition, but that is not where what will establish your iman. That will just, that's just fun. It's fun to learn. That's all it is. So I hope that's of some maybe hearing these words, it resonates with some people and it gives them some maybe some inspiration, inshallah. Mufti, do you know that you are an ENTP? I'm an ant. I'm an ant, huh? Acha. But like the one that was communicating with Sulaiman alayhi salam. No, I'm joking. I know you're talking about the personality types. I've forgotten what it said I was. I did post it on Facebook a while back. Somebody said folding the sleeve or trousers in salah. No, none of these things are necessary. It's all cool. You don't need to fold the... this sleeve, folding up the trousers. What is this nonsense? I mean, it doesn't... people say like, oh, you must do it for salah. Well, the ruling's got nothing to do with salah. The ruling was there in general, and it doesn't have any relevance in this day and age. Because nobody walks around dragging their bloody sarong. And just to fold up your trousers makes you look silly. I mean, unless you're a hipster. But yeah, so drinking tea like the Indian pie. Yes, people, we got to talk about that in a moment. The whole pilot thing, the India-Pakistan thing. I did, I have my book where I make notes sometimes of certain things for the Monday nights, and bloody, I don't know. I think Layla's just picked it up and put it somewhere. God damn, this is the tragedy, people, of other people touching your stuff. You can't find it. So, but I did, there were some notes. We'll speak about the Ghazwat Hind, and we got to speak about India, Pakistan, and the whole, what else is there? We've got to speak about, there are some questions on, that was sent in, but I will check as well, any questions being posted live, people. So I'll tell you what, shall we get on to this Pakistan thing? India, Pakistan, what's going on? Let me just also open up the... Right, India, Pakistan. People, yeah, wo kya raha tha? What is going on? It was going mad. Oh my God, people. If you've missed this, you have almost missed, you just missed an early apocalypse. The world could have come to an end, people, honestly. And I don't say that in any... It could have actually... We could have been en route, set on a kind of path to the apocalypse. And I'm not joking, seriously. Because these are both are an emotional country, and both are nuclear strong. So those of you that don't know, they both went loggerheads at each other, India, Pakistan, and we did have a momentary outbreak of a war over there, but it was contained, alhamdulillah. And I did make some posts on it, and many people applauded my posts, and some people did get offended. Now, I do have a lot of friends through social media who are in India, who are Hindustani, and I love them all. I love India, Hindustan. I have no issues with India. Obviously, I'm of Pakistani descent, but that doesn't make a difference. You know, what was all of this about? Let me give you a backdrop, people. Right now, those of you that remember, there'd been a Pulwama attack, a place in Kashmir, a military kind of convoy or something got bombed by a suicide bomber carrying 350 kilograms of explosives, which is like, how the hell was he carrying in a highly militarized zone with anything between 7 to 12 intense checkpoints, militarized checkpoints. So it's not a huge place, it's a small place with several other minor checkpoints, but between 7 to 12 intense militarized checkpoints. So how did a car manage to get through these carrying 350 kilograms of bloody explosives? Not like, hey, like something the size of that. 350 kilos. But somehow it did. Later on it emerges, as the Indian opposition parties have highlighted, that Modi, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, his administration and intelligence were aware of this attack something like 8 days prior to it happening, because they've leaked some information saying that they were actually aware, and they allowed it to go on because it would then create a kind of war atmosphere which could be kind of deflected towards Pakistan. You could blame Pakistan. Now, because in India people hate Pakistan, this may unify the country behind Modi, who has an election coming up, a general election in 2 months' time, and therefore he may be voted in. Usual politic tactics. You see it in America with the Bush administration. You see these people, whenever they're about to go down, I know, let's have war. You've seen it in House of Cards, people. Those of you stopped watching once Kevin, once the main character was out. But the point is that this is politics that goes on all the time. Now, Modi did that as well. So, next thing you know, he made a speech saying, right, we know, within I think 5 to 10 minutes, they announced this was Pakistan. They announced this was Pakistan that was behind this. No detailed investigation. Just straight away, they did it. Then Modi made his speech that we will retaliate, we will take serious action, we will boycott, we will internationally isolate, and we will conduct a surgical strike. Surgical strike. A surgical strike means we're going to basically attack some part of Pakistan. We're going to send in some commandos or basically some of our military to conduct an operation within Pakistani soil. I mean, how can you announce something like that? That's just taking the mick. That's the next level. This is why you realize the level of confidence that some Indians have when they send those Facebook messages. Acha. This is where the confidence comes from. We're going to attack. So Pakistan has one of the most amazing militaries in the world, people. Now, they obviously were on alert, but Indian Army, last week, they sent in some fighter jets, okay, that came into Azad Kashmir, which is the Pakistan side of Kashmir. Flew in. Then they were detected by the radar. Now, the Pakistani army kind of chased them off, and as they set off, they let go, released all their fuel, and not all, but a certain amount of their fuel, and also their bombs, in order to flee faster. Now, they landed on a forest and the Indian media, people, if you ever want to watch what 200% propaganda looks like, you have to see some of these Indian media channels. They kill it. The way they do it, like, like now that they released these bombs, they just announced, we did a surgical strike, we killed 300 to 400 militant extremists, we killed them, raat ki tariki mein, hamare bahubali, they went in, bomb girate hue, 300 atangwadi halak, and the way they do it, all their news channels. So Pakistan, right, said, look, first of all, Pakistan kind of conducted an investigation to see what the damage was. And then, personally, this is my analysis, I think Pakistan may have not retaliated if India didn't overdo it with the chest beating. So Modi kind of went out, all out. Modi kind of took some cocaine and he was just all out. He was making his public speeches. We did this. Everybody raise your hands in the air. We are like this. His speeches were mad. The media channels were going mad, saying we showed Pakistan, anytime we have an issue with Pakistan, this is how we'll deal with it. Surgical strike. And it's so irresponsible how the Indian celebrities have behaved, some of them. I'm so disappointed in people like, Ajay Devgan, he does this kind of stuff anyway. He's very kind of pro, very anti-Pakistan. But I was disappointed in Akshay Kumar because in the past he's been quite neutral, to be fair. And he said, Ghar mein ghus ke maro unko. And you think, what the hell? But anyway, Pakistan had to retaliate. So Pakistan retaliated, people. Allah. And did they retaliate? I tell you. They seriously dealt with them. I mean, on the borders, and so many other, and the Pakistan media has been really calm and they haven't been exposing what they've been doing, only a small percentage. And Pakistan keeps saying, oh, we want peace, but they really dealt with them. And they sent in their fighter jets, the JF-17 Thunder, which is a Pakistani-made fighter plane, people, third generation, and sent them in, and then they lured in the Indian pilots and then shot them down. And there's certain things on social media saying that Pakistan destroyed some military compounds or something in Kashmir, or they attacked something which they're not opening up to, they're not admitting. Because Pakistan in the public media has not been really... it's been kind of saying, nah, we haven't done much. It's like one of those, nah, we're only talking... No, we just want to talk. Now, we're being really friendly here. We don't want to fight. That's how the Pakistan army has been kind of like. It's been like, look, guys, we are here. We want peace. We're not doing it. That's how it's been. So on the media, they've been showing that, nah, we're not doing anything, we're not doing it. Now that they got hold of the pilots, they released the pilot, goodwill gesture, the world recognized it. And one awesome thing that's happened out of all of this is that Imran Khan explained that we have no issue with India, the only issue is Kashmir. That the heart of the problem is Kashmir. He brought the issue of Kashmir to the attention of the international media. And I have to say that is an amazing thing he's done. So maybe for once there may be some resolution to this Kashmir matter, which is serious, and I think that's an awesome thing Imran Khan has done. After that, there was some serious danger posed on Pakistan, where India, in the days that followed, 2-3 days, it set up its missiles, and the intelligence was that it was going to strike maybe 3 air bases in Pakistan or 3 cities. This was the Pakistani intelligence. So that was an incredibly tense time, really, because if they had struck with missiles, because some people were saying they were going to strike Lahore, Sialkot, and maybe Karachi. If they had struck Pakistan, the Pakistani army did state that we would have retaliated 3 times as much. That would have been a full-fledged war. There would have been no coming back from that, people. Right, and if that had happened, you see, Pakistan, it would have resulted, if cities got destroyed, like if they, not just borders, we're talking about them striking a city, right? You have to remember that some people were saying India is economically far more equipped, is economically far more stable. It is, but it relies on those cities. Remember, cities like Bangalore, which are the IT capital of India, Pakistan had stated that it would have 1 missile aimed straight at Bangalore. It would have had, it would have been crazy. And I could unfortunately see that have resulting in maybe even a nuclear war. Pakistan has in the sea, one of its naval ships carry a nuclear missile, a potentially new missile called Babar, which is has the capacity to carry a nuclear warhead, and that can be aimed at any major city throughout India, and it's a smart kind of missile that it can dodge anti-missile missile kind of rockets, and it can kind of go over things and under things, and that it would have been the end of the world. I'm serious. Pakistan has up to anything between 130 to 150 nuclear warheads. India has something like 120. And certain nuclear reactions can detonate other nuclear reactions. And these are not like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki kind of bombs, just the fission. These are like the fusion. These bombs are you cannot even imagine the damage they can cause. And if so many of them detonate in a part of the globe and they trigger nuclear chain reactions, it can actually shake the earth off its axes. It's so powerful, these nuclear bombs. They're not like, this isn't something, this isn't just child's play. This is the fate of humanity could be impacted by these 2 nuclear war countries going to war. It's not, this is the most volatile border on the face of the earth, people, as we know it. So it was an immensely tense time last week, because Pakistan had, Pakistan's intelligence is ISI are one of the leading intelligentsias in the world. And they had intelligence that India was going to attack by missile. And I think it was a great thing they did, is they released this information to the media. Because once you release it, you see, it's very difficult that they're going to do it now. Because they said that, and Imran Khan said that there's intelligence that India are planning a missile attack on one of our cities. Or on at least one of our cities. And then India said, oh, what nonsense. And the unfortunate thing is that the intelligentsia, the ISI, said that it's actually a coordinated effort with Israeli intelligence in India. And, even Robert Fisk had an whole article saying that there are Israeli fingerprints all over this Indian war that is happening. And, it's it's shocking, really. But alhamdulillah, Pakistan, it seems to have immensely de-escalated now. Pakistan did an amazing goodwill gesture. And I think they've really, kicked their butt in the process and showed them that you can't actually mess with Pakistan. And I'm really glad that they did. I'm absolutely against war. But I feel if India did these surgical strikes, they needed to be taught a lesson, because you can't just let them, continuously do things like this. Just do surgical strikes in your country. And you know, some people said that, oh, you know, but Pakistan and this and that. And one thing I realized, the media is so biased against Pakistan. America is with India. UK is supporting India on this. France is heavily supporting India. The BBC, their reportings, I was watching it, are so biased. I was shocked how biased they were. And it's just disappointing. So this whole thing, but yet Pakistan still emerged as the kind of victor. It won the war of perception anyway, worldwide, and it kicked some serious butt in the process. And something India seems to forget is that the Indian army, people, is not actually a tested army. Like, the Indian army hasn't actually fought. And, you know, somebody made a comment on one of my posts saying, you see, the Indian army has a larger weaponry arsenal and larger military personnel. And that is true. So the Indian and Pakistan army is at a 2-to-3 ratio with India. So that's the ratio of its personnel and its people. Pakistan has over 600,000 people in its active army and 500,000 on reserve. So it ranks number 6th on the world's largest army. But that said, India has a larger army. It has something like not just 600, it has either 900,000 or 1 million in its active personnel. But India is so large. I mean, Pakistan's only 20% almost of India. It is so large as a country, and then they're so divided because they've got a lot of fronts to be on. But their army isn't actually tested. They haven't actually fought any wars. And you see, this is the mistake. And this is the same mistake that America made. Because America has the most leading technology in the world. The military kind of capabilities, its smart bombs, its aircrafts, its kind of guns and everything. And you look at it like the Taliban, who are like, basically, like, to them, they're like cavemen. You know, they're like people running around with an AK-47 and just wearing shalwar kameez and a turban. You know, I mean, like, what are they compared to, like, you look at the military personnel, the leading army in the world when it comes to technology, right? But they're not a tested army. You see, the American army aren't used to fighting. They don't actually go out and fight wars. I mean, in Iraq, the Iraqi army just gave in. They just kind of didn't fight them. So that's not really tested. Now, when they were tested in Afghanistan, they got their butt kicked because they couldn't even fight the bloody Taliban. 17 years, and now they're having to have a dialogue in Doha with them in Qatar. But why? Because you can't win the war against Taliban. You've got a bunch of basically disorganized, you know, Afghans running around in mountains, and you can't beat them with the world's most equipped technology because you're not a tested army. You haven't actually fought wars. And this is the same thing with India, whereas Pakistan army fought in the Russia-Afghan war. It fought against the Russians, right, for over a decade. Then it fought, or again, it participated in Afghanistan with those wars. And it's been fighting the internal terrorism. It's been fighting. Now, you see, when you have a tested fighter, somebody who's actually fought, and you have somebody who just knows theory, it's not going to stand. Like, it's not really a... So this is one of the reasons why whenever India goes up against Pakistan, it gets its butt kicked, is because it's not actually equipped on the ground. It doesn't have any experience in actually fighting. So, yeah. Anyway, and I think some people got offended when I was saying this, made a post, and they said, well, Mufti, you're usually the voice of reason, but here you're kind of biased because you're Pakistani. Look, it is true that I am Pakistani, and obviously I'm going to be biased like that, but I try to be as fair as possible. And India did start this war. Modi, that's the administration. Look, there's many people in India who are against this war, who are against the Modi administration, who say this is propaganda. But the truth is, they started it and they got their butt kicked, and they deserved it. Okay, because you can't be a bully, right? That's what they were doing. They were being bullies. Okay, so that is unacceptable, and I'm glad that Pakistan dealt with them. Now, the other thing is, somebody asked a question that, look, Mufti, you're not mentioning anything about the terrorist kind of organizations in Pakistan, like Jaish-e-Mohammed. Now, I want to highlight that, look, today, actually, as we speak, today, Pakistan has announced, Imran Khan announced, for there to be active operations led against any kind of militia operating within Pakistan, like Jaish-e-Mohammed or Lashkar-Taiba or anybody like them. They are already proscribed organizations. They're already banned for many years. But look, I want to say something. Look, listen, people. These kind of jihadi organizations, they are a problem in Pakistan. Okay, Pakistan has, Pakistan is like a mesh, an amalgamation of very different kind of people. It's like in America. Look, America has some people who are the leading humanists on this globe, right? Right. Some Americans are like leading on humanism, on human rights, on all kinds of rights. They are the pioneers on this globe, some Americans. And then you get some Americans who are like redneck, kind of complete hillbillies. Like, you're going to have complete opposite ends. And Pakistan is the same. Like, Pakistan, you will get these nutcase extremists, Molvis. You will get some of these people like in the Asia Bibi case. They just, become a mob and, cavemen. Like, you get that. And then you will get some people who are so intelligent in Pakistan. And intelligence is of different kinds, by the way. You're going to get, like, obviously, emotional intelligence, creative intelligence. And there is that as well. But, like, there's a kind of, like, a Machiavellian kind of intelligence, which is like a kind of survival intelligence. That to kind of outdo the other in your survival. And I think there's several Pakistanis who are so gifted with this, that in this kind of, almost like that kind of deceptive intelligence. And the interesting thing is that psychology says, one of the theories, the intelligence hypothesis, is that it developed in outmaneuvering the opponent. That's how intelligence was formed, as an act of survival. And I think on these things, there's some Pakistanis who are so on it, in a like chalak kind of way, that they are like this kind of conniving. And this is why the ISI is so one of the leading intelligence things in the world, intelligentsias. But coming to this point that there are some nutcases and extremist organizations in Pakistan, like this Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-Taiba and other kind of nutcases as well. You do have them. But people, you have to understand that this militant mindset began with the Americans wanting to flood the Muslim world, places like Pakistan and Saudi, especially Pakistan, with this, to support this idea, to support the Mujahideen fighting Russia during the Afghan-Russia war from the early 80s right through. And Pakistan partook in that. Now, so there was like a full green flag on you can do whatever you want, and there was CIA funding. Now, you can read what Noam Chomsky writes about the war on terror, that the CIA have a key role in the creation of this extremist kind of jihadi. Now, the problem is that, look, they've been creating them and supporting them. That happened. Then there was the 90s where they were flourishing. And then there's been the crackdown following 9/11. But look, extremists that have been living like this and growing up and infesting in Pakistan for at least 3 decades, you can't to eradicate them overnight is very hard. It's going to be very difficult because these are people who are so rooted in that country. So it is going to take time. Right? So I do agree that this is a problem. It is a virus in Pakistan. But I do believe that Imran Khan and other people are trying to uproot them. But it is going to take time because it's taken decades for them to take root. Right? So this is something that we have to be fair about. And some Indians did ask me, some people, only some, that look, how come you're not condemning? I do condemn Jaish-e-Mohammed. I do condemn these organizations. But look, let's just be fair that, look, these extremist organizations have to be condemned everywhere. What about India? Look, what about the Modi administration? The Modi... Prime Minister Modi was he was a member of Shiv Sena. Shiv Sena is the equivalent of Jaish-e-Mohammed. In fact, Sena means army, which is what Jaish means. And Jaish-e-Mohammed, the army of Muhammad, but the army of Shiv, of Shiva. Now the point is that Shiv Sena is an extremist, right-wing, fascist organization that hates Muslims. He was a part of that. He was part of the cover-up of the Gujarat massacre that happened where they butchered Muslims. Since he's been in power, the situation in Kashmir has deteriorated. Kashmir, what's happening there is terrorism. The army imposing for political gains, imposing their kind of might, oppressing, killing, blinding, butchering. Is that not terrorism? So that's terrorism. So you have to condemn everything. I condemn the terrorism in Pakistan and the extremists, but I equally condemn the ones in India. Those like Shiv Sena and these right-wing fascists, and saying that that you can't eat beef. That, if you eat beef is Hamari Mata, this is our mother, the cow. For God's sake, a cow is more valuable than a human being? What the hell is that about? How can a goddamn cow, be more valuable than a human being? Gai Mata, and this kind of nonsense, because in essence, Hinduism is meant to be about peace. It isn't this kind of right-wing, and let's be fair. Look, let's separate Hindutva, the right-wing kind of Hindus, from Hinduism. And some people have been just hating on Hindus non-stop. And I request and I plead to them that, look, don't do that, please. Because, look, Hinduism is based on peace. Okay, that it's not fair to brand all Hindus and start taking the mick out of all Hindus, because that is not true. They are not like that. All Hindus are not, and some people are saying, they drink cow piss and they do this and they do that. And I saw so many people saying this, and I saw people doing the hashtag, gay Hind instead of Jai Hind. And this kind of stuff, I condemn it. I utterly condemn. And I am, like I said, I'm proud of how the way Pakistan stood up for, and I'm proud that they kind of kicked, taught them a lesson. But this is wrong, and wrong is wrong. We cannot condone anything that is utterly unacceptable, like this blanket guilt of all Indians are wrong. They're not. The administration is not all India, and Hindus are not fascist, but there is Hindutva, which is the fascist part of Hinduism, just as you have Muslim extremists. Are not all Muslims, are not the majority of Muslims. So the same way, we shouldn't be kind of just mocking, in this thing, we shouldn't be attacking. And people shouldn't be kind of like attacking Hindus or making slogans against Hindus and saying, this and that. But against right-wing Hindus, fine. Against the right-wing fascism, against the Hindutva, against the Shiv Sena, against those organizations, yes. But not against your regular Hindu. Okay? Because at the end of the day, see, nobody really wants... human beings just want to live in peace. Fundamentally, if you get down to the point, people just want peace. They just want to be left alone. there's this poem that I read the other day that जंग तो खुद ही एक मसला है, जंग मसलों का हल क्या देगी. You know, that war in and of itself is a calamity. How can it be the solution to any calamity? So these were some things that were kind of bothering me, and I wanted to say, and I understand that, you know, in India, and I feel for Indian Muslims, because in India, Indian Muslims have no freedom when it comes to anything the governments do. Like, they can't be critical, and ever if it's to do with Pakistan in the equation, they have to at all times be anti-Pakistan. Otherwise, they get lynched. You know, it's not like, it's not just about sucking up. You know, they don't do this just to suck up, but they do this because they will be attacked. They will be, you know, there isn't people just go mad. You know, I saw the Indian politician, the Muslim, who I follow him sometimes on social media. What's his name? From the Owaisi brothers, but the elder, the brother from Hyderabad, who has his all Muslim party in India. And I saw how he was being very unnecessarily critical towards Pakistan. And I understand, obviously, he's Indian and he's not Pakistani, and he can be, but he has to be. Because he's a Muslim and he's got a beard and he wears a hat, and he's a politician, and if he doesn't appear to be anti-Pakistan, the Indians will lynch him, the Hindus, the right wing, and then they will just incite the mob, and it's a sad state of affairs, wallahi. And I do feel, and may Allah grant ease to all these people, and may Allah seriously may Allah facilitate for the right-wing fascists to be removed in places like India, and for them to enjoy the secular freedoms that they have and the secular state that they have. Ameen. But much love to everybody. I just wanted to say that, look, on both sides, and even the Indian army, look, I don't have anything against the Indian army as a person, and I respect them, and they're just your common person that are being forced to kind of like go out to war, and a lot of them are suffering. They are low caste people put forward to go forth and just die, and they don't want to, and they're not even equipped properly. But the soldiers, this comes back to my question that I said earlier on. Soldiers are always exploited people. This is what my problem with armies as a whole. That they are usually exploited for to fill the pockets of rich politicians. And the people who suffer in the end are the families who lose soldiers. You know, the mother that has to bury her son and things like this. And this is all politics at the end of the day. And so, even though in this scenario I am very grateful to and very proud of the Pakistani army for defending the soil and for defending their right as a sovereign state, and I am proud of them, but in general, globally, just speaking on, detached from that topic, that the armies of the world, this is all they do. They're just pawns, and people exploit them. So, right. Okay, right. Whoa. Let's take a few questions. Right, I'd been asked a question that is the abrogation in the Quran. And then I'll try to... Actually, people, sorry, before I get distracted, let's deal quickly with the Ghazwatul Hind topic. Right, so people have asked me, because it's relevant to what I've just been saying, that there are certain hadith that speak of India, and that towards the end of time, Muslims will conquer India. Is this true? This is known as the Ghazwatul Hind kind of prophecies, and there's so many hadith of them, so many about things like Ghazwatul Hind, that some scholars have said that you could compile an entire book just based on all of these narrations to do with Ghazwatul Hind, to do with the battle against India. Now, I want to clarify first straight away there is not a single Sahih Hadith on the Battle of India. There is no such thing. It is not from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These things were fabricated and made up later on. There is no, and we've got to understand that these were used as political ploys, okay, to kind of strengthen people's causes. Now, most likely, I think that the first one may have first appeared to support the Umayyad campaign into India. So when Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi had commissioned Muhammad ibn Qasim to go and launch an attack on India, which is Sindh. Remember, that whole thing was Hind. Now, in my understanding, that's when these hadith would have probably been fabricated, to say that the Prophet said that this army will be supported that attacks India and fights against India. All of these hadith are baseless. Most of these hadith really are transmitted through Abu Hurairah radiallahu an, through utterly weak and unacceptable chains. Now they try to say one chain that they try to base it on is that of, they try to say Thoban, who was the servant of the Prophet, that his chain is reliable. This is what some people try to say, and it's in the Musnad of Ahmad, and it's in Nasa'i and things like this. Now this chain reads that Haddathana Abu Nadr, who says Haddathana Baqiyya, from Haddathana Abdullah ibn Salim wa Abu Bakr ibn al-Walid al-Zubaydi an Muhammad ibn al-Walid al-Zubaydi and Luqman ibn Amir al-Wasabi and Abdul A'la ibn Adi al-Bahrain and Abdul A'la ibn Adi and Thoban, the servant of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he said that two groups of people from my ummah, Allah will preserve them from the hellfire. One group who fights India or Hindustan, the land of Hind, and the other who fights with Jesus. And you can see why this hadith is totally fabricated, because there isn't a single hadith about the second coming of Jesus that is authentic. But put that aside, this is what they say is the strongest chain. Now, first of all, it comes in Nasa'i in other books, and when it's transmitted in many of the places, it's an. It says an, and the first, the key person that emerges first of all is Baqiyya ibn al-Walid, who is utterly unacceptable if he says an, because he is known as a major mudallis who would do tadlis from weak people. In fact, they even say kun ala taqiyya min hadith Baqiyya. That's actually one of the poems that the muhaddithin would write, that beware of the hadith of Baqiyya. He's in the chain, but even when he says haddathana, as he says here, I still wouldn't accept his narration. But that said, those who want to accept him, the next problem is that Abu Bakr ibn al-Walid az-Zubaydi in this chain, he is unknown. We don't know who he is, but people will say, oh, but there's another person with him, Abdullah ibn Salim al-Hamsi, who's also narrating this. But then let's go on. All of these narrations come through one person. From Thoban, it's coming through one person, all right? It's restricted through him, and that is Luqman ibn Amir al-Wasabi. Right, so Luqman ibn Amir. Now, he is somebody who is not a reliable narrator. He has been, by some people, he's been placed as, he's just about kind of okay. So Ibn Hajar says he's Saduq from the Thalitha, from a kind of lower category, as in he's Saduq is somebody who we think, in and of himself is a truthful person, but is he reliable? Because being truthful doesn't mean you have a good memory. It doesn't mean that you're good at transmitting things. But in and of yourself, you're a truthful person. That's what Ibn Hajar says. Now, when a truthful person is doing, even though some people did say he's thiqa, I accept that, But Ibn Hajar says he's just Saduq, and some people like Abu Hatim says, okay, we can write what he says. But when he has tafarrud, so this means this riwayah only rests on him, how can it be accepted? So that's part of the problem that we've got here. Now, and you've got people, and so even people, by the way, in case somebody's going to question, where can I find things like this? So even Al-Dhahabi does state that in his Mawqidha. He writes that the tafarrud of the Saduq, of somebody who's described as Saduq, his tafarrud is not acceptable. Okay, so I'm not blagging, this one. This one, the ulama are saying this, right? So that, and then this thing to do with India, you find a lot of hadith speaking of the black flags, that there will be this army of black flags. And I know ISIS tried to use this as well, and I know the Taliban tried to use this as well, and it says that there will be an army of black flags from my ummah that will come from Khurasan, which is like the east, and it was part of like Afghanistan, or that part of the world was called Khurasan. Now, people say, oh, what about... There isn't a single hadith that is sahih to do with the black flags. Okay. In fact, Sheikh Hatim al-Auni, the Saudi scholar, has an entire article dedicated to this, where he goes through all of them, highlighting that there isn't a single sahih hadith here. Okay, on the black flags. People like Sheikh Zubair al-Izai has also written on this, highlighting there are no Sahih Hadith on the black flags, and other people have. And this, people, was a propaganda that emerged most likely with the rise of the Abbasids. Because the Abbasids, when they came to take over the Umayyads and their uprising in the year 131 Hijri, they came from Khurasan. And they came with black flags. And their first caliph, the Mahdi, right? Like, so you see, and what do the hadith say? Oh, when you see a part of my ummah coming from Khurasan carrying the black flags, and that will be the Imam, that will be your Imam, and his name will be the Mahdi. How bloody convenient. This was pure politics, people. The Abbasids were using this to overthrow the Umayyads, and it was just their propaganda. That's all it was. Hassan Yusuf, who says, hey bro, love from India, much love, right back at you, man. There is not, so coming back to this topic, there is not a single hadith, people, about fighting India or fighting Hind. Okay, this Ghazwat al-Hind is batil. Okay, there is no Sahih Hadith, and I'll ask people, I can challenge them to bring a Sahih Hadith that is Sahih by, as in uncritically Sahih. Not just, oh, we want it to be Sahih because I'm picking and choosing, as in it cannot be criticized. Okay, right, so you bring that, this is not true. So people, and this is why Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says, look, and this is the wisdom. Imam Ahmad does bring these hadith, but the hadith he brings in his Musnad are not sahih. He writes that, and he himself says 3 topics have no basis to them. And I want you to take this into consideration, people. What are these 3 topics that have no 3 chapters, as in 3 books, he says. He says that these 3 categories have no basis to them. لَيْسَ لَهَا usul. One is al-Maghazi, the battles led by the Prophet. He says these have no usul. You know, when these people speak of the battles of the Prophet, Imam Ahmad is telling you that these things, yes, there's many hadith, but 99% of it is all weak and made up. Right, so, but people may take them as stories and things like that. And he said, malahim. These kind of, oh, that will be to do with the end of times and things like what will happen, the battles at the end of time, all this, Jesus comes in that, the Mahdi, fighting India, Ghazwat Hind, all of these, la asla laha. They don't have no usul. And the third, tafsir. Tafsir of the Quran, people, much of the tafsir in Hadith that you have is actually baseless. And that reaches us. Much of the tafsir from Hadith, right, is actually just made up. And this is Imam Ahmad teaching us this, but yet people don't take this. You know, Imam Ahmad says things like this, and people say, oh, you know, when it's convenient, they will just turn a blind eye. Imam Ahmad said, Man idda'a al-ijma' fahuwa kadhib. This is from Imam Ahmad. Man idda'a al-ijma' fahuwa kadhib. Whosoever claims that there is a consensus is a liar. And people just turn away. They don't want to know. Imam Ahmad says these three, Laysat laha usul, al-maghazi, al-malahim, al-tafsir. People turn away. See, this is selective, like, because we just want to support our narrative. So I just wanted to clarify this, that look, there is no fight, no great war against India. The Prophet had never said this, okay? Then there is a debate that did the Arabs even know about India? And some people have said that Hind was referring to Basra in Iraq and other places. But my personal opinion is that I think that the Arabs did know about India, about Hind, because traditionally the term Hind comes from Sindh. Okay, so people call India Hind. It was called Hindustan or India from the Indus Valley, the Indus River, which is actually the Sindh River. Okay, so the Indus Valley civilization is actually the Sindh civilization. And that's what it's actually called in the text. So they call it the Hadaratu Wadi Sindh. They call it even in Sanskrit and Hindi, they will call it the Sindh kind of civilization, not the Indus like in English, because of the river Sindh, which is called Indus in English. But people kind of like, for Sindh, they kind of replaced it into Hind. And then some people have said yes, but some people consider these to be two, Sindh and Hind. But my research does seem to show me that they did know about India, because there was trade between Arabia and India, and certain things like kurumful and other kind of and other things as well, like peppers, like fulful and other things did come over from India to Arabia, and other things did as well. There is a debate about Muhannad, the Indian sword. Is that because of it being made from India? And I am inclined to it is. So that's my understanding. Some people have argued that point, that the Arabs didn't even know India existed. I'm pretty sure that they did. And definitely after the Prophet they did, because and there's some debate about an Indian king, even a representative coming and meeting the Prophet. There's some debate about that. But after the Prophet, we know in the Abbasid time, for Baytul Hikmah, they translated a Sanskrit work from, and in fact they called over an Indian scholar who's it was a famous work. Is it Surma something? But the point is, they translated his Sanskrit work, and he then resided there for a while. And one of the famous Indian doctors actually treated Harun al-Rashid as well. So we definitely know that there was, there definitely was contact after the Prophet's time. I believe even before the Prophet's time they did know of India. I'm inclined to that. So I'm not so convinced by the theory that they had no knowledge of India. Right, although I'm not so sure that is Hind the name, was it named after India? So I know, like, you'll have some of the companions, like the women were named Hind. So the wife of Abu Sufyan, her name is Hind. Is that named after India? I'm not so convinced that is, because if you look at the general Arab trend, they didn't used to name people after countries. Like, ancient countries, like, they wouldn't do that generally, as far as I'm aware. Maybe somebody here watching this has more research and they can let me know about that. But cool. I thought I'd share that there is no authenticity on the Ghazwat Hind, so we don't need to kind of beat the drums and say that there's going to be some kind of war against India. There isn't, people, not from a religious perspective, totally and absolutely not. Cool. Any other interesting points? I'm thinking, shall we just, I think with that, shall we call it a night, folks? It's gone past midnight. I was asked, one final thing. I was asked about to comment on Hadith. How do we know the authenticity of Hadith? And this ties into, I'll answer into this, and this ties into, there's a video, another video made by my by one of my deep down diehard fans, Baba Fariduddin Gangu Teli. So Gangu Teli has made another video which is called Abu Layth versus Abu Layth. And I have to say, people, this guy is so obsessed with me. He said in one of his posts, he wrote this, that I have watched almost 100, I think he wrote 180 hours of Abu Layth to take out snippets. I had to like avidly, I had to so carefully watch 180 hours of me. I mean, I don't even think I've watched 100. I honestly, seriously, I seriously want to employ this guy. I want to, I need people like that, that watch my recording so carefully so I can tell them to kind of put together, string together different clips. This guy is such a keen viewer. Please, work for me. I'll kind of spray the what is it? Naach meri bulbul ke paisa milega. Ay Gangu Teli, naach meri Gangu Teli ke paisa milega. Right. So the thing is, look, he's obsessed with me. There's a student and friend of mine, Abu Muawiyah, who, right, you may have seen on social media. This guy took his photographs from Instagram where he's smoking some shisha or something and started ripping into him as some kind of attack on me. And he took Abu Muawiyah had made some post about how his journey through faith and how he struggled at some point, and he questioned his faith, this whole faith of fearing God and things like this, and he abandoned the prayer until he kind of introspected and looked into, and then he writes at the end that he then rediscovered his journey to God, but this time built on love. And then he started to pray, and he advises people to pray. But he ignored that part, and he kind of cropped the top section where he abandoned the prayer and posted that and said, right, he said, this is the student of Abu Layth. I mean, seriously, first of all, I want to say that he's such a loser to be not only stalking me, but my friends and students. Right? Firstly, that I want to say that. Secondly, look, Abu Muawiyah is not my girlfriend. He's not like my wife or something. Why are you telling me what he's doing? It's none of my business. It's none of your business, for God's sake. Abu Muawiyah isn't even on Twitter, and this guy goes and posts it on Twitter like a loser. And Abu Muawiyah is not even on there. And how petty can you be? And to crop out. And then he thinks that's somehow getting at me. It's like, ha 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 ha. Like I'm not in a relationship with him, Like, the guy's my friend and he's a student, But so what he does, is smoking shisha. Like, I give a damn. I mean, smoking shisha is not haram anyway. But I mean, so what? I mean, what are you, like his dad? This is how petty these people become. So, right, so he has been watching like 180 hours of mine recently, and he made this clip and he put it on Twitter. That's his tweet, that guys, don't let this go in vain. I spent 180 hours watching Abu Layth to make this. So I wanted to like make a fake profile and ask him, because some people have been saying, oh, Mufti, could you put together some clips of yours when you're doing this, or when you're cracking jokes, or when you're reading poetry, for example. Somebody asked me, can you put all these clips together? And I've asked some people, but that's so hard, and I want to ask him now. I got to make a fake profile to say, yeah, man, that Abu Layth guy, you know what will really do him over? If you make a clip of all his poetry clips. Yeah, man, yeah. Seriously, this guy is such a loser, Gangu Teli. But anyway, so he makes this one clip saying Abu Layth versus Abu Layth. And anyway, so few people sent it to me. So I'm like, go on then. What the hell is this guy got to say? And that must be his joy, that yes. So he begins it by some kind of story about M&Ms or something, which I totally couldn't get, honestly. I honestly did not get the relevance of that story about somebody said eat an M&M, but don't eat the red one. But then somebody said don't eat the green one. Somebody said don't eat the, I don't know, the brown one. And I'm like, yeah, I hate to be saying, honestly, it hurts me more than it hurts you to say this, that you need to stop watching me. You need to stop. I can't believe I would ever say that to someone, but you need to stop watching me, because your obsession levels are through the roof, man. Like, your story doesn't even make any sense. I got no idea what you're talking about. And then he goes on to say, well, Abu Layth will refute himself. So what he does is he plays my clip of the video of the age of Aisha. And then he's trying to refute my points using my clips from other segments. So first of all, before I answer this, so he's saying that you're criticizing a narrator here. Sorry, you're using a narration from this narrator here, from like, let's say, Urwa or Ibn Jurayj or Zuhri. But over there, you're criticizing Urwa and Ibn Jurayj and Zuhri. Haha. So first of all, before I even answer that, I want to say, what are you even arguing for? Let's just take a breather. You're arguing for the argument that the Prophet married a 6-year-old kid. That's your argument, yeah? And what am I arguing in that video? That's not true, that's nonsense. So, all these people cheering him up, this is what you're arguing for. I mean, you can believe that if you want. I find it disgusting and so disappointing that you would hold the Prophet in such low esteem to say he looked at a 6-year-old kid and said, yeah, I'll take her as a bride, but even if I'll wait 3 years to have sex. I think that's so disgusting and blasphemous and disrespectful towards our Prophet. I've said that that's nonsense, and I don't care what the people in the past bought it for whatever reason. It's not true, and it's based on weak, fabricated narrations. Now, but this is what that you're arguing for. I'll also remind you, and I've played this in the past, these are the same people, Farid Gangu Teli and his and et al. And his kind of group in that video which I played on 2 occasions, where they say, and it's on YouTube, where they say that, so what if the Prophet was sexually impotent? Yes, so the Prophet, for the Prophet to be sexually capable, that's not a condition of Nabuwah. He can be impotent. These are the people, this is the Wahhabi mindset that they've got, how they hold the Prophet in their mind. Like, this is the regard that they have towards him and the consideration and respect and reverence. So the reverence. So if that's your attitude towards the Prophet, you know, like, what do we expect from people like you? We're not going to expect. There's no hope, mate. So, okay, put that aside. Now I'll answer your questions. Right. Look, when I've answered this before, and I'll repeat it again, that look, when we look at Hadith in the past, how can we believe Islam is for all times? Do we agree? That let's take this step by step, briefly. Step 1, do we believe that Islam is for all times? Yes, we do. Tick. Do we believe that we can access the information about Islam in all times? Access it meaningfully. We can access it. Tick. Now here there's a problem. The hadith that we have today, how do we know these hadith are true? This is a question. Yeah, this is a question. Now some people will answer this by saying, oh, that's easy. We will look at the chains. Okay, point. The problem here, so when you say this, okay, go to the next checkpoint. The problem here is that, okay, we look at the chain. How we verify the chain through the books of Rijal that do like CRB checks on these people. This narrator weak, this narrator reliable, this narrator problematic or okay. Problem number 1 is there's a ton of opinions on each narrator. Somebody saying is okay, somebody saying is utterly unacceptable. Okay, so you know, Imam Nasa'i is saying Awais, Ismail ibn Abi Awais is unacceptable. Bukhari saying is okay. So this, you've got problems. Okay, so different, like an utter clash, a yes and a no from different people on most narrators. Problem number 1. Problem number 2 is, even if, let's just take the fact somebody says, oh, he was okay. He had a good memory. The question is, the bigger question is, how do we know that that was true? Because these people that are saying it didn't actually ever meet him. So even if Imam Bukhari said, let's say Imam Bukhari said that Urwa had an amazing memory. Let's just take that as a point. But Imam Bukhari never ever met Urwa. And he wouldn't have known anybody that directly knew Urwa. So him vouching for him, how is that equally meaningful for us today? So how? Because let's just be transparent. Because remember, most of these people didn't ever meet the people they were speaking about. Most of the people they're speaking about, the majority, they never ever met them in their lifetimes, ever. Like they had long died before them. So the question is, well, how did they know they were truthful? Well, you'll say, well, I'm sure their teachers would have told them, and their teachers got it from their teachers, who got it from somebody who would have known him. Possibly, I agree, that's the theory, but we don't know because we don't have those names. They haven't told us that. That is our guesswork. So, okay, so let's agree on that. So the truth is that we have people saying things about people who they never ever knew personally. And they couldn't have met them because they died generations before they were even born. So, but we take it in some good faith. But the problem is, now we're going to make judgments based on this. So good faith, you know, we need to take it with a pinch of salt because it's just good faith at the end of the day. So we fall back on the 3 principles that the scholars of Hadith taught us and the scholars of Islam, that whenever a riwayah comes to us, a Hadith, it must not clash with reason. La yubayin al-ma'qul. Right? Lam yubayin al-ma'qul. Lam yukhalif al-manqul. It cannot go against the Quran, and it cannot uproot, lam yunaqid al-usul. It cannot uproot an Islamic principle. Once these 3 are fine, then okay. Now we can take from these people, if they've said that, and we can even take from people who we wouldn't primarily take from. So by the first and general preference, we will take from people who have been deemed okay now. So they've passed that check. People said they were okay, but they have to pass these things. Once they pass all of this, fine. Then we will take from them. Okay? So that's the criteria. So when I'm saying that, look, the age of Aisha, why is this problematic? Because it seems to go against, right? It goes against reason. It clashes that the Prophet would have, that if he's a prophet of God, how could a prophet of God be doing something like that? Be even looking at a girl like that, like for marriage, who is just a kid. That goes against reason. That either he's not a prophet of God then, or if he's a prophet of God, then he wouldn't be doing things like that. So it goes against reason. It seems to go against the Quran, because the Quran seems to suggest that the women marrying, it refers to them as women. Right? That marry the women. Don't stop the women from marrying. You don't refer to little kids. And when the Quran is referring, even in those ayat that people say are talking about Aisha, that they say that, and Allah says, Ya Nisa an-Nabi, that the women of the Prophet. What is a 10-year-old a woman? And now they're going to try and reverse engineer that, but people don't refer to little kids as women. Right? So the Quran seems to be going against that understanding. The Quran seems to address children as separately. The Quran doesn't even the Quran doesn't even obligate them with salah at that age. So a girl that doesn't even have to pray can be making judgments about marriage. And you'll say, well, no, she doesn't have to make the judgment. So it's forced upon her. And the Quran says, La ikraha fid deen. There is no compulsion. So it goes against, and then it uproots Islamic principles, people. It uproots the principle that marriage needs consent. The consent, rida tarafain. And how can a 6-year-old consent? And you can say, well, yes, she can understand. Well, okay, can she consent to a transaction? Can a 6-year-old be purchasing land? No, not according to Islamic law, not even according to regular common law. 6-year-old can't go and purchase land, can't purchase a property, can't purchase a car, can't purchase things, because she's just a child. So she can't comprehend that, but she can comprehend marriage. So either she's capable, and if you say she's capable, then why can't she pray? She ought to be sinful for not praying then. So Allah hasn't even mandated salah for her till, according to the Islamic principle, until the age of 10. To some discernment, and that's just for prayer. That's just like doing rituals. That's not even a complicated thing. So when you look at the principles of like commerce, a child cannot conduct commerce on its own. A child cannot go to war. A child cannot delegate things to other people. A child in Islam cannot even manage its own finances. Like let's say there was a certain amount of wealth left for a child. Let's say a child was orphaned at the age of 10 or 9, a 9-year-old, let's take a 9-year-old, and there was wealth left, that is not handed over to the child. A guardian watches over until they become baligh, until they become pubescent, and then you test them so long as they don't have any mental defect, and then you hand it over to them. That's in the Quran, and that's an Islamic principle. So it goes against this. So it's going against the Quran, it's going against the reason, it's going against the Islamic principles, and the great narrative that why the Prophet married anyway, because of the year of sorrow. So yes, then we see that these narrators have been problematic as well. And I've highlighted that. And we show that this doesn't make any sense. And Urwa, we know that Urwa was the nephew of Aisha, and certain people did try to hurl allegations at Aisha at a later age, saying that she had committed adultery and things like this, and before she married the Prophet. And it makes sense that maybe Urwa fabricated or misrepresented or misrelayed, as in when it came to that narration, he maybe pushed back her age to show that, oh, but she married the Prophet as a child because he was really fond of Aisha, who was his aunt. And when there were a lot of allegations by people, obviously Muslims generally don't believe that, but there were some people at the time who were trying to say, oh, Aisha had committed adultery before she married the Prophet and so on, and this is why she knew that Safwan, when the whole Hadith or Ifk, when there was the allegation that she had an affair with him. But they were saying later on, although Allah exonerates her in the Quran, they were saying, well, how did he know her from before? So some people made up stories later on in the generations after the Prophet that, oh, she must have had an affair with him before she met the Prophet. Now, so Urwa most likely, if anything, may have pushed back her age to kind of, to make her seem like, oh, what are you talking about? She was so young when she married the Prophet. How could she had an affair? That's one interpretation. I'm not saying that is what happened, but that's plausible. But the point is that this content is baseless. So yes, if we find a narration by Urwa or Ibn Jurayj or let's say Zuhri, which complements these three things. So let's say you find a narration by Ibn Jurayj or Urwa saying there are 5 salahs in one day. Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. Let's say you find a narration by these or other people saying that alcohol is haram in Islam. Is that a problem because they've been criticized? No, it's not a problem because it complements these three. If you find a narration saying something like, oh, there's a virtue in reading the Quran and so, fine, you can act by it. But if you find something that throws the whole character of the Prophet under the bus and they've been criticized, then na munana. This are not nice, my friend. So here we stop that, and that's where we stamp things down. So I hope that makes sense. So these people who say, oh, but Mufti has criticized Urwa here, but used a narration from him here, but he's criticized him here. Yes, I'm not saying that everything, just because I do feel that these people have said certain things and they have maybe at times misinformed. But it doesn't mean everything they did in their life was misinforming. Doesn't mean that. I mean, that would be absurd to assume. Even if you take the kadhab from the books of kadhabin, those who are utter liars in narrations, I'm sure not everything they said in their life was a lie. If you get a kadhab rawi, I don't know, Khalid al-Madaini or other people are pure kadhabin, and then they say, oh, here's a hadith that La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, doesn't mean that's a lie. Just because they're a lie doesn't mean that they have to lie in or misinform in everything. So use your common sense, for God's sake. Right? So I hope that's some sense to Gangu Teli Saab. Right? Guys, other than that, it's been an epic evening. We've gone on for a while. Some people just tuning in now. Sharmila Afzal just tuning in now. Ahlan wa sahlan. You're going to have to catch up with what's been going on. If you've got any questions, do reach out to me. Messenger, Facebook Messenger, or you can do my other Facebook profile as well, the public profile. But do like and follow both people. I do share messages from both. And I was almost about to say you can WhatsApp me. So you can Snapchat me, Malm 2014, or Facebook. People, till next week. Right, I think that's right. Otherwise, it's going to go on way too much. Till next week, people. Take very good care of yourselves. Much love. Mwah. Right. Gio origine do, people. Gio origine do. Over and out. Over and out.